Good afternoon, Kisha. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me, Shawn. Excited to be here.
No worries. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate this. It was great getting a chance to catch up with you before we got started. But Kisha,
Yeah.
this is Lending with Purpose, and welcome. And so, conversations that we have with our clients and friends, introductions to various forms of information and professionals like yourself, resources that we use, that we look for, that we never knew existed and wanted to learn more about. And I think a big piece about, obviously, you're a professional. You're a tremendous resource that I've come to find out over the time that we've gotten a chance to know each other. But the piece about the things that we look for that we never knew existed, I wanted to learn more about. I think your product is a really big piece of that. The never knew existed. That's not a knock on you because you're doing a very good job at branding and getting to know JustisConnection. But I do think it's going to end up at some point. Just my prediction is going to be a household name. And so I
Amen.
want to try to help you get out to as many people as possible because I think you have a really creative and unique platform. And so before we get started, I typically tell a little story. Not going to be a story today, but I wanted to ask you a fun fact. Did you
Okay.
know that September 18th, Fannie Mae, who backs and buys the mortgages that we do, they're going to be changing up the credit scoring requirements. Did you know that? Did you hear
Mm.
that?
No, no, I know I did not.
All right. So the way it's worked before is, Kisha, you and I are buying a house together. Maybe I have a so what was typically happen is we have three credit scores that each of us Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, right? And what they would do, so that between the two of us, that would be six credit scores that we would have, right? And what they would do is they pick the one that falls in the middle for
Mm.
Shawn, pick the one that falls in the middle for Kisha. So no rhyme, no reason which one they choose. It's just a number, right? So if I had a 720, a 730, and a 740, they would use a 730 score, right? If you had a 720, a 735, and a 740, they would use a 735 for you, right? However, if we're buying a mortgage together and we're doing it jointly, they would use my score, the 730, because it's the lowest of the two and the one that would quote unquote have the most risk. They would use
Mm.
the one with the highest risk.
Okay.
So what's going to happen moving forward? I think it's September 18th. We'll put this information out there September 18th. What's going to happen is they're going to average those scores. So they take my 730, they take your 735, right? And they do an average between the two. And so I don't know. I use calculators all day. People think I'm so smart with math, but it's gonna be like what 732 would be the
Hmm.
average score
Hmm.
between the two. And so
Right.
that's the number that will be used. And so you're in legal and obviously we're trying to create equity around the world, right? And so what that is doing for us is it's allowing more people to have an opportunity to qualify because
Mhm.
what was happening is you have someone with a much lower credit score, right? But a spouse or someone, a co-borrower on the loan that had a higher credit score, and we'd have to use the very lowest score. So sometimes it knocked them out of having the ability to qualify. So now it kind of levels the playing field and they're averaging those two scores. So we feel like that more people will have the ability to qualify for a mortgage.
Right.
So I wanted to bring that up today because I thought that was important. And, we're going to be talking about some diversity, equity, and inclusion and things like that today, I would assume. So I thought it would be fitting to talk about that particular piece. Well, enough about mortgages, enough about me.
Interesting.
We had to get the lending piece out of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
All that later. But Kisha, um, I'm not Steve Harvey, so I don't give this big
Ha! Good.
huge it's just like he but he does an amazing introduction, right? So that's just not my thing.
Okay.
However, you're gonna do a great job at introducing yourself. So tell us who you are,
Yeah.
what you do, and then we'll get into the conversation.
All right, no problem. So I'm Kisha, right? I'm an attorney by trade. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a new mom. And I'm a proud Maryland, Prince Georgian resident. So I am the founder also of JustisConnection, which is the first Black lawyer referral and legal resource platform in the country. And as Shawn knows, building this brick by brick, lawyer by lawyer, and feel really passionately about providing quality access to legal resources, especially to communities of color, especially to Black communities.
Awesome. So look, listen, here we go. Go back to the tech piece.
Okay.
Let's talk about that. Let's tell everybody specifically what it looks like to engage with JustisConnection. Like, what is it? Like, what's your why? Like, how'd you get started with it?
Okay.
What was the thought around it? And specifically, Kisha, what problem are you trying to solve with this?
Yeah.
And why technology as well?
Yeah. So, I feel like from the minute I started law school, I had people asking, hey, do you know ... type of lawyer, family lawyers, bankruptcy, criminal, all different types, right? And I found that I would go through my phone, I would email some friends, but I realized that we as Black lawyers did not have a concerted network that connected us to the greater public and specifically to even our own community. And so the pain point really exists on both ends. From the perspective of the lawyer who is unknowingly leaving money on the table by not having access to this network of new clients, and the Black community who, since the inception of this country, has been marginalized and oppressed oftentimes by the law itself, who are in need of legal counsel, whether we know it or not sometimes. Sometimes we just take stuff on the chin and we keep it moving. Oh, I got a tough break, I got to keep going. But, when you're discriminated against on your job, when you slip and fall, when you have a charge against you, you have the right to avail yourself fully of the law, right? And connecting with someone who is culturally competent to be able to meet you where you are, advise you accordingly, and work their tail off to bring you the justice that you deserve. And so I wanted to create that network, create that robust marketplace where people can go to find a trusted, respectable lawyer, and for lawyers to have a place that, did them justice, that showcased them, that they weren't in the background, that they weren't second thought, but they were the prime prospect. They were the ones to be where the shine is. And so we take great pride in being able to highlight just the tremendous talent that Black lawyers have in the legal industry.
Got it. And then so it's built though on a tech platform though, right? So online is where I would go to get engaged into this community. And so shop is probably the wrong word to use, but is that where I would kind of go in and pick an attorney that fits what I'm looking for? Like, how's that piece work with your platform?
Yeah, no, great question. So, for the average person, you're going to come to the site and it's free to use. There's no $30 a month, $4.99 a month. I actually do not like those services. I find that, when you need an attorney, you need a specific attorney. You cannot oftentimes pay somebody $30 a month to have access to a 30-minute consultation, because that's usually what you're getting. It's just a 30-minute consultation one time on that one subject, and then you have to pay to be able to get and hire someone in their network, their full price. So it's free. The platform is free for the public. The lawyers pay to be in the network and have access to the new clients. So that's how we're able to deliver it free. And so someone would come, be able to share what their problem is, right? To be able to explain, hey, I need a lawyer as soon as possible. Or, you know what, I actually don't need a lawyer for a month or a couple of weeks, because sometimes it varies, whether maybe it's criminal charges and you need someone right away, or maybe it is writing a will, right? And you don't need someone until maybe a couple of months down the road. So we let people also put in their budget, and especially the jurisdiction in which they take part in, right? So if you're in Maryland, you're going to need a Maryland-based lawyer. If you're in Virginia, you need a lawyer who is properly barred in Virginia. And so we make sure our lawyers are properly barred in the state where they are attesting to, and that they don't have any current or pending grievances or charges against them. And so it allows someone to come on, check off, sort of here are the things that I need in the lawyer inquiry form, and be able to share their problem. One of the things that we are working on, Shawn, is that natural language processing so that we can begin to take somebody's problem and have the system identify what potentially is that person's legal issue. I find that oftentimes people, it's easy to miscategorize sort of what your issue is. Sometimes people will say, oh, I have a real estate issue, when it's really landlord tenant, or it's housing, right? Or it's contracts. And that can make a big difference, right? In just even getting you to an attorney quickly and the right attorney. And so what we do also, one of the things that I developed on our back end in order to make it most efficient for both the public and the lawyers, was making it so that you're not going to be just given a list of 821 potential lawyers, right? I don't believe that people need 820 choices, right? It's too overwhelming.
Too many.
Right, it's too many. It's too many. And so, and the lawyers then oftentimes get a bunch of calls that aren't pertinent to the cases that they take, right? And so what we do is we have the lawyers sort of pre-screen the case so that they're able to say, hey, this is the client that I have the right expertise, the right timing, and the right jurisdiction that I can go ahead and potentially connect with them as a client, and in forging an attorney-client relationship. And that affords the person to then get emails that say, hey, we've made a match for you. So when a lawyer is matched with you, you get an email with that lawyer's full information. The same thing happens on the back end. The lawyer gets that person's full information and they can go off into the sunset together, right? We also give folks some preliminary questions to ask and some additional resources in the beginning to help them in the beginning as they formulate that attorney-client relationship and choose who should be the person that is able to guide me during this time in my life. It can be a challenging process to say, hey, how do I find a lawyer? So we've cut that out. You can come to JustisConnection, one-stop shop. But then also in making that decision, we try to give folks some resources and some information to help them along the way with that as well.
Sounds good. So thank you. You're making it easy for me because you're giving me all kinds of segues. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So I wrote down legal matchmaker.
Yes. Yes.
That's what I wrote down, legal matchmaker. But the title of this conversation today, I saw there was an article that, you had a bunch of quotes in, Kisha. I can't remember the publication, but you mentioned that, one of your goals was to provide opportunities for the Black lawyers to serve the community and families and businesses, right? And to change the narrative, not to just think about lawyers only when you're in trouble, right?
Right.
Can you speak to that? And then I'll have a couple follow-up questions on that. Like, what were you thinking when you wrote that? I mean, it sounds self-explanatory, but I'd like to hear your take on it.
Yeah, of course. It's one of those things that as a lawyer, I take for granted, right? Because I know lots of lawyers. And so I have the opportunity to engage with other lawyers, to bounce ideas off of them, to hear their thoughts and feedback. And essentially that's what you want, right? You want some lawyers in your tribe so that whether you're a business owner or even the management of your own personal affairs and family, right? You want someone who understands the law and is able to advise you accordingly. And sometimes we often, like I mentioned earlier, we're used to just figuring things out, right? Just trudging ahead and letting some things, quite frankly, fall to the wayside. Mm-hmm. And a lawyer can be someone, you want to develop a relationship with your lawyer, right? Because when you're in crisis mode, oftentimes you're like, hey, who is it? Where are you? Come on board. Let's do this. Save me, right? And sometimes, and then that's it. What you want is, especially as a business owner, especially as someone who maybe has a family, and that family doesn't have to be husband or wife and children. That can be you're an aunt and you've got godchildren, you're a daughter, right? And you're caring for your parents or dealing with, there are all different types of, right, the family structure. If you breathe in, you got, somebody that's connected to you and some type of affairs, and chances are you could benefit from legal counsel. So that could be really talking about, having the conversation about how do you protect your legacy? You do a lot, Shawn, on trying to advise and educate folks around, lending and financing and building your wealth. And a lawyer can also help sort of be a part of that tribe for someone to be able to share on how to avoid tax liability, right? How to make sure that your assets don't get caught in probate, how to make sure that the children or the grandchildren that you want to inherit certain things are able to do so, right? 70% of Black families do not have wills. 70%. Right? And so we're losing a lot of our hard-earned assets, our homes, our pensions, all types of stuff, right? That is falling through the cracks because we haven't been advised on the front end, midstream, and even on the back end as we try to navigate sort of all these different systems, right? Every Black neighborhood has houses that are just sitting there waiting because, Auntie such and such passed away and they still ain't figured out who owes what, or the state now has gotten involved in all types of stuff, right? And so a lawyer can be someone that you go to check in. And let me tell you, when you make that relationship with a lawyer, they're not going to charge you every 6 minutes, right? They want to be able to make sure that you're successful, because a successful business owner, right, is a good client. A successful person who's able to manage their affairs is a good client, right? And quite frankly, it's vice versa. When you're happy and you feel satisfied with the work of the person who's giving you this legal advice, you're going to run tell that, right? You're going to tell somebody at church, you're going to tell somebody in your fraternity, you're going to tell your favorite cousin. And so it's this ecosystem that what we want to do is make sure that people know that lawyers are an integral part of that for them.
I was sitting here laughing. I wanted to interrupt, but I'm like, let me let her finish. I introduced you to my attorney. And it's funny because sometimes I'll call her. I'm like, well, don't push the button yet. Right. And so I just thought about that when you said, no, they're not going to charge you. But once you build a great relationship with your attorney, you come to find out that relationship's invaluable. It ends up saving you a ton of money, and it ends up putting your mind and your heart at rest, right? It eases everything, and you can make a lot of great decisions because you're not so distressed. Right. And so I found that out about, at least on the business side, the attorney that we have, she makes it very simple for us to do business. We also have someone in compliance that advises us. That's an attorney as well. Just even thinking about the time when when my wife and I set up our trust and created a will, things of that nature. And then I have clients that, for instance, they come to us for like a reverse mortgage, for instance. Mm-hmm. No mortgages, they're fine, but they're not always the best for people, and they don't always work for everyone, especially when there's heirs and siblings involved, right? Mm-hmm. And especially when someone's at an earlier age. And so what I've been doing is advising them, hey, go talk to an attorney. Find out how this works if your parent, not if, but when your parent passes away. Yeah. How is this going to be distributed, like in regards to equity in the house and such? Yeah. How is it deeded and titled? Like, how can you pick up on it? That kind of thing. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. The attorney is definitely invaluable, the relationship. So what are some of the challenges? You talked about it a bit earlier, but these great problems that JustisConnection is solving and that you've been solving your entire career. But what are some of the challenges that you are seeing as you're building this business in regards to the community and law?
Some of the challenges, I would say, I thought a big challenge was going to be convincing the community, right, that they need to talk to a Black lawyer, that they need to talk to a lawyer, that lawyers are their friend, right, that they're not blood-sucking vampires who, are awful. But I found that the public is really receptive, right, that they want to connect. They want to support Black lawyers, first and foremost, and that they want to try and avail themselves of the law. Right. I think a challenge too on the lawyer side is meeting lawyers where they are. oftentimes people see lawyers as, oh, doctors and lawyers, they're balling, right? They're making money out the wazoo. And the reality is that for Black lawyers, it can be quite a struggle to build your practice up, right? To develop clients and to build up your firm. And for Black lawyers, it's a lot to manage. When we come out of law school, we don't have a good old boy network to inherit, right? Most of us are first generation. And so we are somewhat starting from scratch, it seems like, as far as client development. And that is one of the things that we hope to be able to alleviate for Black lawyers, to be that powerful marketing tool in their corner, being able to reach the masses and bring relevant new clients to them in an effective and efficient manner.
I never knew a Black lawyer before I got into I finished college. It wasn't until then, growing up in the community that I grew up, I just, I didn't see that. And so, depending upon what professional communities you're in, I'm finding that there are more and more resources and options for, the Black community to engage with a Black lawyer. But like I said, like this was, new to me, and someone like yourself would have been more or less like a unicorn.
Yeah. And it's important for us as Black lawyers to be more prevalent, to be more active, to be more visible. Because the more you know about the law, more lawyers the more likely you are to proactively engage the law. And the reality is that for most Black people, no matter what our personal net worth income is, we know less lawyers than our white counterparts, right? And so when you have less resources, you then sort of act, you show up differently, you act differently in the law. And so by expanding your network, your access to legal resources, to legal counsel, we hope that people then allow themselves, right, the ability to more engage it, right? You have options. You don't have just that one person and you're like, all right, you my lawyer, you all I got for everything, right? Because quite frankly, that person doesn't handle everything. If you handle wills and trusts, chances are you're not handling housing cases, right? Or you're not handling mergers and acquisitions. And so it is important to be able to have access, to have a place, a trustworthy place that you can go to be able to explore different lawyers. And we want folks to explore, right? We're not going to give you just say, hey, you pick this one lawyer and now that's your lawyer. It's all about saying, hey, there's going to be a couple of folks maybe who reach out, definitely not 821, all right? We cap it at about 6, so that if you want more than 6, you can, but the default is 6, so that you have the opportunity to sort of review and explore at what's convenient for you.
Got it. And the reason I said that, and I mentioned, the piece about not knowing this or being exposed until it's, really as an adult. You mentioned being culturally competent, and that's what made me think about it, is because it's always good to be able to work with someone who can relate to you.
That's right.
And understands your plight and your and speak the similar language. And so one of the other questions that I have here is like, this service is just not for the Black community, right? We want to provide access, or you want to provide access through JustisConnection to the masses, to anybody that to give equal access for these attorneys to be able to serve families and businesses, and specifically, obviously, to help the Black community. But it's just not limited to people of color. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Got it. And then so I asked you about the challenges. You talked about that. What are some of the benefits that you're finding? Like, do you have any wins or success stories that you wanted? Because your business is 2-3 years old now.
It is. It's so crazy how time flies. Sometimes
we met 2 years ago.
Yeah, especially with 2020, it's sort of like that weird year where you're like, oh yeah, there was an extra year, right? But it has been about 3 years. And I remember early on, Shawn, getting advice from a legal tech entrepreneur or a tech entrepreneur who advised me early. Huh?
Was that me? No,
It wasn't you. He actually is now the director of technology for Baltimore City. But he said, don't go out and build your system based off of what you think it should be right now. He's like, do it by hand, do it all manually for at least 6 months, and allow yourself to begin to really understand what the coding needs, what the system needs, so that you can then be able to articulate it right to your technologist. And I remember back in the day being like, 6 months of hand doing this? There's no way. I want this thing to be up and running and zip, zip, zab. And, for any entrepreneur out there, that's not how it works, right? There are so many pieces, right, to the puzzle, and being everything from the CEO to the janitor requires a tremendous amount of your time and your patience, and fortitude, right? And being able to, I find being able to connect with amazing people is one of the most rejuvenating aspects of this journey, right? So, we were in a space together, and, sometimes even just, you get to see someone and chat and exchange and hear about their day going well or their day not going well, and be able to commiserate in that, and support one another, and exchange ideas, and be able to connect people to new people, right? I think that's been one of the most inspiring and rewarding parts of being an entrepreneur, is being a part of this larger community, where I have gotten a lot of support and a lot of encouragement from.
Yeah, our companies are like kids. It's like we dropped them off at preschool together. We're picking them up every day, and then we become friends, and we watch them grow, because we started in the community in College Park together, building our businesses. And you and I, we collaborated a great deal on like marketing ideas and just like, startup ideas and things of that nature. So it's been great to the growth in your organization. And just even like with your team, someone from your team reached out like a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, oh, okay, great. Definitely. Let's
good to hear.
So it's just been good. And I totally support you, and I want to see you win massively. So let me see what else I have. So we talked about the challenges, we talked about the benefits. You touched on it all. Like so Kisha, what's the best way for us to connect with you and to connect with you or Justice Connection?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for sharing your platform. I love the whole setup. I love how professional and on top of it, and you are a natural at this. So this is really cool to see you in this vein. And thank you for allowing your platform to be, a vehicle of being both informative and just informal, right? Allowing folks to show up as themselves and share accordingly.
Thank you.
I would love for folks to be able to follow us at Justice Connection. That's JUSTIS Connection, like just is, what is just, Justice Connection. And that's our tag on everything, right? So follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, on Twitter, we're Justice Connect, as well as going to our website, JustisConnection.com. We're always trying to share tips and tricks from our lawyers, and just some insight from them. And definitely want to hear from folks on what they want to learn more about, how we can better serve the community and continue to be a great resource. We oftentimes provide lawyers as keynotes and speakers, and that can be for your conference or that could be for your book club, right? Like, it's so important for us to be able to normalize being able to receive good legal information. And so you go to the website. Even we're continuing GoFundMe to have some support as we continue to bring out free legal resources, especially. So at GoFundMe, I believe we're at Justice Connection, but you can find that also on our website under the JustisConnection.com/support.
Got it. And we'll put this in the comments. So JustisConnection.com, and then pretty much at Justice Connection on all social media channels.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so Kisha, you I appreciate the sort of what do you call it, the applause or whatever you want to give it, and giving me my flowers
That's
earlier.
right. Got to give them to you. Got to give them to you. You deserve them.
Thank you. But this, I don't know if I ever told you this, but this all started with the pandemic. Like, I had so many people reaching out, asking questions about whatever it might be. Like, and it wasn't always about how to get a mortgage or how to fix your credit, or, what does my credit score need to be, or what programs and products are out there. It was about like, hey, Shawn, we're going to be in virtual learning now. I've never been a teacher before. I don't even know how to use the Zoom, and what's it going to look like? And I'm just like, I don't know. But they're like, but people. And I'm like, well, okay. And then I'm like, all right, I saw this thing on LinkedIn that I could go live. And then I'm like, all right, let me get a credit guy and let's go in here and talk about credit. People were worried about if they didn't, if they lose their jobs and they couldn't pay their bills and stuff, what would happen? And then it's like, all right, how do I solve the problem with the teacher situation? Because I need to think about this too. So I got a couple teachers to come on and talk about it. And then the biggest scare in our industry, my industry, was, all right, cool, we need to get signatures on these documents. It's great. We can show folks houses and all this kind of thing. But now how can we close and, consummate the sale? So I'm just like, oh man, I want to know that answer to that question too. I don't know how to do it. So we get title attorneys and title companies to come on. And so
there
this,
there you go.
Wow, like 18 months later or so, every week we're doing this at 2:00. And so I'm so happy that you have been a part of this, because I think for at least my network, like I talk about, it'd be a shame to have folks in my corner like yourself that I keep it a secret and not be able to share this information, because someone could really use it. I personally think, like you mentioned, there's so many folks out there that don't have access to like wills and things like that.
Yep.
Like, that's something that we really, really need to think about.
Yep.
And then there's entrepreneurs, because we're on the platform for business. There's entrepreneurs that will need to get some advice to protect themselves and protect their businesses. And so thanks for that. Last thing, and then I will let you go. I didn't tell you what this is. It's a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
Sometimes, Kisha, we use it as an icebreaker, like you mentioned, like keynotes and things of that nature. But so we finish with this, and this is the purpose piece of our platform. So you get one person, dead or, if you don't want to answer this, okay, but I want you to answer it. One person, dead or alive, right? And you get one question: breakfast, lunch, dinner, coffee, a DM, or whatever it might be, on social media or platform or such. Who would it be, and what would you ask?
Who would it be, and what would I ask? Dead or alive. It's so funny. I was just listening to something like this on the radio, and they were talking about Tupac. Tupac's not going to be my choice, but
Okay.
I think I would ask for my great grandmother, Old Tune, who lived to be 103 in Jamaica. And I think I would ask her, wow. There's so many questions I think I would want to ask, and I would almost want to ask for like everybody in the family. But I would probably maybe ask her what was her greatest life lesson? She had 13 kids and saw a lot in her time. And when I was really young, she called me a young Margaret Thatcher, right? And my grandparents never forgot that and always shared that with me. And for those who don't know, right, Margaret Thatcher was called like the Iron Lady, so there's that. But for a Jamaican woman in the country, Margaret Thatcher also represented, I think, this new era of female leadership that had not been seen before. And there was something in me that she saw that resonated with that. And I think I would like to ask her about, that life lesson, and sort of hearing what she saw in me that led her to that observation.
It's a great question. I'm sure she would be able to expand, and you get all your questions answered after that great open-ended question. Greatest life lesson.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start calling you Margaret.
Jokes.
MT.
Right. Iron Lady coming down with it. Probably some of my former law clerks would be like, yes, that sounds about right.
You said that sounds about right. But no, that's awesome. And once again, you mentioned at the beginning, when I asked you who you are, a new mother. So congrats on that. So happy for you. I know your beautiful daughter is bringing a lot of joy to your life and balance.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. It is, being a mom is no friggin' joke. I don't know how these parents out here with multiple children and doing X, Y, and Z. It's amazing. It is. I have so much respect, especially for single moms who are making it work and have limited resources. It is no small feat, and I feel like the government should be paying us $10,000 a month to keep another human alive. You're welcome.
All right, well, maybe we'll do another show about that. Bring some moms on and talk about it.
There you go.
No, Kisha, I appreciate your time today. This was great. Always enjoy catching up with you. I ask you to stick on for another minute with me as I close out.
Yeah.
But thank you for your time today. Everyone, like I mentioned every week, if there's anything that we can do to help you in any way, don't hesitate to reach out. Be ashamed to have resources like Kisha and not be able to, introduce you and provide these resources to you in our network. Next week, we'll be here again at 2:00. So I hope everybody has a great day. Remember to remain as safe and as healthy as possible. And we'll see you next week. Thank you, Kisha.
Thank you.